Later today, President Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, will meet Vladimir Putin in Moscow for talks aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. Witkoff, who's been joined on the trip by Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has met Putin several times already this year, but it's been observed he's never been to Kyiv. Russia's refused to back down from its core demand that Ukraine retreats from the areas of its own Donbass region that it still holds, something Zelensky has said it will never do. There's also the question of NATO membership for Ukraine, which Putin vehemently opposes, and Trump has also ruled out. And I'm joined now by Hanna Hopko, a former MP in Ukraine and a former head of the country's Committee on Foreign Affairs, who is co-founder of the International Centre for Ukrainian Victory. Hanna, welcome to you. The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, helped to redraft a 28-point peace plan more sympathetically towards Ukraine when the original one negotiated by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner leaked last month. But he's not in Moscow today. What do you expect to happen?
So actually no expectations, because from the beginning of Trump approach, peace through strands, Trump took a position to support Russia, unfortunately. And this 28-point or previous attempts to push Ukraine to make more pressure on the victim, not on aggressor, this is a wrong approach which will not bring us to sustainable and just peace. And let me explain why. Because for 11 years of ongoing Russian aggression and last almost 4 years of genocidal period of this war, we've never seen a long-lasting ceasefire. And as a mother of 14 years old daughter, Sofia, it's heartbreaking to see what's happened in Dnipro city just a day ago, what happened in Kharkiv, how kids are being killed by almost daily Russian ballistic cruise ballistic missiles and drones. Can you imagine? Russia attacked Ukraine within the last 2 months with almost 11,000 of drones trying to reach innocent civilians and to kill ordinary Ukrainians when they were sleeping in the night.
I know that original document that I referred to, and which you obviously don't have many hopes will progress much further than it already had reached, required Ukraine to surrender land and limit its armed forces to 600,000 troops. It also contained clauses allowing American companies to profit from the reconstruction of Ukraine using frozen Russian funds. Look, I know, and particularly given what you just said, I know that you are a battle-weary nation, but how were those proposals received by the Ukrainian public?
So Russian war in Europe became a modern laboratory of new technologies and modern warfare. So Ukraine is an asset for European civilization, for the EU, and Ukrainian armed forces is de facto the European armed forces which are defending Europe. So how we could decrease the number of forces which are protecting all European nations? So of course we cannot allow this to happen. Second, also on the deoccupied territories, let me remind you that 1.6 million of Ukrainian kids are under Russian control and temporarily occupied by Russia Ukrainian territories. All these kids are being brainwashed, and they are the future soldiers of Russian army. This is why I think Trump should start from demanding from Putin to return back all Ukrainians abducted, forcefully deported kids.
I'm sure all our listeners would agree with you. A concern has grown in some quarters that the US has become more amenable to Russia's demands than Ukraine's, and you've obviously been reflecting that in your answers. Is that the feeling in Ukraine itself?
So Ukrainians, we are the nation of heroes. Because when Americans predicted us 24 hours in 2022 that Kyiv will be occupied, but it's already 4 years after the full-scale war started. So we are a very innovative nation, and this is why we cannot, from the nation of heroes, to turn into the nation of capitulators. So this is very demoralizing, and disappointment in our European partners are growing. We don't understand why Belgium, having more than 190 billions of euros of Russian sovereign assets, are not confiscating them. So why we are not using Russian money to help Ukraine to defend European civilization? So this is very unfair, and I think Europe must lead, not always look at the White House and to see how Trump and his Witkoff and other guys who just want to make money, who just want to profit from this war. And it's not in the interest of European security.
Quite. I want to just change tack slightly now, if I may. President Zelensky's position at home has been weakened by a corruption scandal, which has led, albeit without any accusation of wrongdoing, to the resignation of his chief of staff, Andriy Yermak. What's the feeling among Ukrainians about the corruption claims that have led to Yermak's resignation, and also to the suspension of two members of Zelensky's cabinet?
So since from the beginning of Dignity Revolution, almost 13 years ago, when we started to protest, so it was important to build strong anti-corruption law enforcement institutions like National Anti-Corruption Bureau, Agency of Prevention Corruption. So we invested a lot of efforts to build these strong institutions which are fighting against corruption. So this is why all these scandals, it's a positive signal that Ukraine is a vibrant democracy, whereas with check and balance system, there are no untouchable people inside Ukraine. So it's crucially important that it's not just scandal, that investigation will follow with the verdicts of higher anti-corruption court. And all these people, which are part of strategic corruption in the energy sector, in defense, will be in jail. So people demand justice, and this appetite for justice in Ukraine during the war is growing. This is what Zelensky understands very clearly. And by withdrawal of Yermak, we have to keep investigate more, and more people who were a part of these corruption schemes, sure, they have to be punished.
Right, sure. Another tack change here. Ukrainian security services have said a British man has been detained on suspicion of spying for Russia. Now, it's alleged that he was recruited by Russia's FSB spy agency after working as an instructor training the Ukrainian military. I just want to ask you, with the number of foreign nationals in Ukraine, are you concerned that cases like this may become more common as the war continues?
I think we have special agencies which are dealing with this, and they have to be more cautious and actually do everything that to minimize these cases. Because this is how, remember, Russia organized the assassination of former Ukrainian speaker Andriy Parubiy, who was killed in Lviv in Western Ukraine by a guy who was recruited by Russia. So I think KGB methodology, KGB instruments, so we all in Europe, in Western nations, G7 countries, we have to be very careful with all this, like studying all these Russian examples, and be prepared and actually to build a system to prevent these cases.
Very good. OK, Hanna Hopko, a former MP in Ukraine and former head of the country's Committee on Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much for your time today.